Incoming message.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're cutting right through the noise of history and internet lore to give you some clear, structured insights. I am so glad you're here with us because we're going to look way beyond the surface of the internet's absolute favorite mysteries. We're talking about haunted conspiracies, but more importantly, we're uncovering the hidden psychological trick that makes them so incredibly sticky. Okay, let's dive into this. What on earth connects an airport, a forest, and a plague from the year 1518? On the surface, absolutely nothing, right? I mean, these three things are separated by centuries, geography, the whole shebang. But as you'll see as we move through this explainer, they actually share a brilliant, hidden structural trick. And honestly, once you see this pattern, you will never look at a conspiracy theory the same way again.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Denver's apocalyptic airport.
If you've flown through Colorado anytime since 1995, you might have noticed some undeniably bizarre realities about this massive transit hub. When the Denver International Airport opened, it didn't just have, long lines. It featured a massive 32-foot-tall anatomically correct blue Mustang statue with glowing red eyes. And yes, tragically, a piece of that statue actually fell on and killed its sculptor during construction. Then, inside the baggage claim, travelers were greeted by these giant, frankly apocalyptic murals. If that wasn't enough, outside sits a very real dedication marker from the, quote, New World Airport Commission, which is super weird because that group appears to have zero public record anywhere else. So the foundational facts here, genuinely strange and completely 100% true. And this brilliantly illustrates how human nature responds to the strange. Now, you might be wondering, what's the conspiracy? Well, people claim a secret elite built a massive end-of-the-world bunker beneath the runways, that the art is a prophetic warning, and the Mustang is some dark tribute. But the reality is a lot more mundane. The construction was simply massively over budget and incredibly badly managed. The murals and the Mustang? Just highly controversial public art commissions, not coded messages. Because the airport authority was so secretive about their delays and budget disasters, they created a massive vacuum of information. They didn't need to hide a bunker. They just needed to hide their terrible mismanagement. And that secrecy allowed these wild, apocalyptic theories to spread like wildfire. Moving right along to Section 2, Secrets of Bohemian Grove. Heading deep into the California redwoods, the factual foundation here is absolutely fascinating. Every July, a private campground hosts a highly exclusive gathering. This isn't a myth. Some of America's most powerful men, politicians, CEOs, media titans, they genuinely gather there. And yes, they partake in speeches, performances, and a highly theatrical ceremony known as the Cremation of Care, featuring a giant owl statue. I know, it sounds literally like something out of a fantasy novel, but it is entirely real and very well documented. Once again, the conspiracy takes these strange facts and dials them up to 11, claiming the world is secretly run by a satanic elite worshipping an ancient deity named Moloch in the woods. The reality? Well, it's an exclusive men's club networking behind closed doors. The ritual is just an elaborate play, and in the club's lore, the owl simply represents wisdom, not some bloodthirsty god. So what does this all mean? The crucial point is this. The reality of incredibly powerful people networking in absolute secrecy, making informal decisions that could impact the rest of us, is genuinely troubling all on its own. We don't really need to invent a satanic elite to be concerned. Yet, the myth persists. All right, Section 3, the 1518 dancing plague. Let's shift gears and go centuries into the past to see if this pattern holds up over time. Imagine being there in July 1518. We're reading this exactly as it appears in the town's historical records. A woman steps into the street and simply begins dancing. And she doesn't stop. Within weeks, dozens of other townspeople join her in this frantic, uncontrollable movement. The records show some danced until their feet literally bled, and tragically, several people danced until they collapsed and died. No way, right? But this isn't folklore. It is a grim, fully documented historical event. How on earth do humans process this kind of terror? At the time, the conspiracy was that it had to be a supernatural event. Actually, scratch that. People fully believed it was a divine curse, or a case of mass demonic possession. It was the only way to make sense of the horror. But modern science gives us highly credible medical realities. It could have been ergot poisoning, which is a toxic reaction from eating moldy grain, or just as likely a mass psychogenic illness triggered by extreme poverty, religious fear, and overwhelming stress from the sheer starvation that the town was enduring. It's medical reality, not mystical curses. Which brings us to Section 4, the unfalsifiable pattern. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it reveals the shared threads sewing the airport, the forest, and the plague together. Let's define our key term here, unfalsifiable. This means an explanation is added to a strange event that is literally impossible to disprove. And this gives the conspiracy its ultimate superpower. You see, these theories don't thrive because they're accurate or backed by hard data. They thrive precisely because they are impossible to fully check. You can't definitively prove there isn't an invisible curse. You can't prove a secret bunker doesn't exist somewhere if people just say, well, you haven't dug deep enough. Let's walk through exactly how this builds into a repeatable formula. This is the literal anatomy of these myths, the mechanics of the magic trick. Step 1. You always start with something genuinely strange but documented. A glowing-eyed horse statue, a giant owl in the woods, a town dancing to death. It has to have a kernel of real-world truth. Step 2. You add an explanation that cannot be disproven. A hidden bunker, a satanic ritual, an invisible curse. As soon as you add that uncheckable layer, you completely seal the trap. The mystery becomes a self-sustaining loop.
And finally, Section 5, the illusion of control. So why do we fall for this century after century? I think it comes down to this. When a theory can explain everything, it explains nothing. This is the fundamental weakness of the unfalsifiable pattern. Think about it for a second. If finding evidence proves the conspiracy, but a complete absence of evidence also proves how brilliant the cover-up is, well, the theory has stopped being a rational argument. It's transitioned into a blind belief system. It becomes a closed loop where reality is no longer invited. And this elegantly summarizes our main takeaways for today. First, the real stories. The mismanagement of Denver Airport, the elite secrecy at Bohemian Grove, the tragic medical realities of 1518, they are strange enough on their own. We absolutely don't need conspiracies to make history interesting. So why do we invent them? The crucial point is that we crave the comfort of someone being in charge. Even if we imagine a shadowy, evil cabal pulling the strings, psychologically, an evil controller actually feels safer to the human brain than the terrifying truth that the world is often full of random chaos, terrible mismanagement, and unpredictable tragedies. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to turn it over to you. Between Denver Airport's massive mismanagement, Bohemian Grove's secretive networking, or the devastating 1518 Jansen plague, which real documented story do you think is actually the strangest? Drop your pick in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed peeling back the layers to find the structural truth behind the noise, hit that subscribe button for more objective, slide-driven analysis. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning the pattern.
Come to me, chickens! Cock-a-doodle-doo!